Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. I'm excited to be speaking with a fellow Canadian today. We are talking to the president of Pace Productivity Incorporated. And what he does is he shows organizations how their employees can gain an extra hour per day for their top priority tasks. I'm interested to hear about that, actually. We're talking to Mark Ellwood today. Hey, Mark, you ready to rock?
Certainly I am. Great to be here, Tim.
Awesome. So we always start off here in a good note. So tell me a story of success that we can be inspired by.
Story of success is I invented a small electronic device called the TimeCorder. For those who are watching, here it is. This is the latest version. I started way back, but this is the current version. And I don't sell those devices. I lend them out to organizations, and their employees use them to track how they spend their time. So my biggest success is, people don't like doing time studies. They like doing mine because the device is easy to use. It gives instant feedback. It's better than an app. And so I'm very proud that we get a 94% participation rate for employees who like doing these studies. That's my good story.
Incredible because I know that time tracking is really not a very popular idea for a lot of people, right? So if you
Yeah,
figured out a way to make it palatable and fun, then that's awesome.
it certainly is. But you're only doing it for 2 weeks, so it's not like you got to do it forever. Our studies are
Mhm.
fairly short-term duration.
Wow. Well, let's get more into that a little bit later. But before we do, I always talk about also the bad note because sometimes there's some things that don't go as planned on your journey. And I'm wondering, is there something that didn't go as planned for you that we can learn from?
Well, I do those time studies, but early on I was trying to sell the device. I haven't shown this on any other podcast, but here's the original version. It's about a kilogram. It's heavy and big and clunky. It's got metal and wood. It turned out that version was the world's most popular product that everybody thought someone else should buy. So I went to someone said, go to lawyers. They're tracking their time. So I presented to some lawyers. They said, not quite right for us. So I was actually on a national TV program, and we went to some accountants because the lawyers said I should talk to the accountants. And they used it. And then at the end, they said, well, it kind of worked, but not quite right for us. Mark, you're going to do really well with independent consultants. So I went to the independent consultants and they said, have you talked to the lawyers? So everybody thought someone else should buy it. I didn't do too well with selling the product, but turned that around. Pivoting is an idea in business that you sort of switch from this to that. So instead of selling the device for $300 or $400, that didn't work. I lend them out and do these time studies and basically charge about $1,200 per person. So I turned something that didn't work into something that did work.
Wow. Wow. Well done. Good job. That's awesome. And so how long do you think it took from the time that you started doing this to the time when you really made that pivot?
I should talk about the initial idea. That was in sort of April. I'm way back in 19, is it 87 or something like that? It
Wow.
was September of 1989. I'm skipping a year. It's September 88. The 89, about a year and 5 months later, I launched the product. And then it was 4 or 5 months after that, in early 1990, that I pivoted because the sales just weren't working. And so I was on TV and someone called up and said, oh, we need to do a study of our sales reps. I thought, perfect. So we went out and did these sales reps. It was pretty crude at the time. I was looking at the results. I uploaded them onto somebody's computer, and they're all gathered around looking at the results. I thought, I'm onto something here.
Ah,
So 4 or 5 months in, when I realized I got to switch directions.
good. Yeah, and that's some good data too. Like, do you think because I imagine there's probably someone out there that's got something that they're trying and they're working at it and it's not quite hitting, it's not quite landing where they want, and they're wondering whether they should pivot or not. When is that right time? Like, what do you know when that right time is? Is it an amount of time or?
Yeah, having invented this, I ran a group, a volunteer group called the Inventors Alliance of Canada. I met lots of inventors. And what would happen is after 2 or 3 years, their business would hit a plateau. And it kind of did for mine as well. So for some of them, the plateau was like 30, 40, $50,000 or something like that. And you think, well, are you happy with that? Because after about 2 or 3 years, it's probably not going to grow massively. Oh, I'm going to get my big break. Well, you get one little break and it's a nice sale, but then it sort of settles back down again. So you kind of have to look at your business and say, if after a couple of years, if I'm at a certain level and I'm not growing much, you're probably not going to grow. And so you have to say, is that a satisfactory level of business for me? In my case, it actually took a little longer. It took 3 or 4 years, but then I started hitting a pretty good level of sales that sustained me for quite a number of years. So, got to watch for those signs and listen to what the business is telling you to say, keep going, or no, this is just a hobby thing that you're going to do on the side.
Because I think it's probably the hardest part, right? You sort of like it's your baby. You don't want to give it up. You don't want to, so you've got a lot of emotional connection to that product, right? You might not be necessarily listening to the numbers the way you should, right?
Yeah, there's a difference between being passionate and being stubborn, or maybe there's not a difference. You're passionate, you really want to do this thing, you really care about it, but stubborn when you're not able to switch. And maybe there's times that I didn't, I got a little stubborn. Um, but you got to see yourself through that and listen to what the world is telling you about this thing that you're offering, whether it's a service or a product.
And when it comes down to it, you're not building it for yourself. You're building it because you need other people to use it. And so if you're not listening to what they're saying, then you might be missing out on something. Because as you mentioned earlier, you didn't just start over and do a totally different product. You just pivoted. It was just a matter of just something that needed to change a little bit, right?
Yes, selling a service rather than the product itself. Now, I did sell some more products, and that kept the cash flow going for a couple of years, so that was useful. But I haven't sold one in quite a while and don't want to. So, yeah, pivoting makes sense as well. And what you do there is you find the flow. What seems to be working? Who are you getting calls from? Who is getting satisfied by your product or your service? And just keep going with that flow and begin to amplify it.
I love that. I love that. It's great. So now, what about the band? Like, who do you have around you in your business that, keep the wheels turning?
I'm a solo guy, and when I started way back then, that was the time where you could start a small business and you could appear to be a large business. So if you get a nice letterhead done and get a fax machine and your phone and so forth. I mean, the internet and email came later, but around 1990 or so, that's when you could start your own business. And so that's what I did. But people call me, well, how big is your company? And I say, I follow my own advice. I contract everything out, and that seemed to satisfy the big multinationals who are hiring me and providing purchase orders and so on. So that's always been my route, is delegating to others. I mean, it's an electronic device. I don't know electronics. So I had to hire a computer guy or a graphic designer, a industrial designer. So I found all those people and they became part of my team. So I delegated out to them. I know a little bit about electronics and how the device works, but even today, if a repair needs to be done, I found a guy in Atlanta who does the repairs for me. There's some bits of assembly I can do and testing, but hire out people to do things that you're not good at doing. That's always been my route to success.
Wow. So how do you find these people? What's your process?
It's not always easy. Certainly with the web now, it becomes easier. Upwork is a site where you can find people to do various types of work for you. Fiverr is another one, Fiverr. And so, people search for what you need there. Back in the early days, because there was no internet, I think I went to trade shows and asked around a little bit. And so it was networking really made a
Yeah.
difference. Who do you know that can help me? The industrial designer who I'm still in touch with, I met him at a trade show and we made a sort of one-to-one connection. And that's what led to him being part of the team.
And oftentimes you can get to good people through good people too, right?
That's right. You should have a network, and you don't need a lot of people have coaches these days. There were no coaches back then. But find other successful entrepreneurs who you can network with and have conversations with. If you do need a coach, well, all right, that's useful. I didn't have one, but I had people who were giving me some advice along the way.
You don't necessarily have to hire a specific coach when you have good people in your network because they all have sort of a little bit of advice that they can give you, right?
Exactly. And maybe I was smart that I was well organized and figure things out. So that was useful that I had those kind of project management organizational skills. And I guess I was blessed to have those. So that certainly helped me as well.
Yeah, and also like you said, I mean, I don't know if everybody has the idea of uh finding someone to help them in delegating. I think a lot of people sort of go, I'm going to just figure this out myself. And it seems like
Yeah,
you have a little bit of both, right?
yeah, correct. You got to work on your business rather than in your business. That's the idea, that E-Myth book. And just if you're doing something repetitively or something that's drudgery or administrative, then find someone else, delegate that to someone else to do it for you. There's lots of people who would like to do it and they're out there. And so I've hired probably dozens over the years to do different aspects of what I need. I have a huge database to gather all this time study data. And I found a guy to build that database. And then he's moved on. So I found a guy, if I need a little tweak or repair or something, I found another guy who can work on that database for me. I don't have to do it myself.
Yeah. And you know what? Like one of the things that keeps coming up is that you mentioned the word drudgery, right? Well, your drudgery is someone else's excitement. Like there's, different people, different personalities. And I do find that interesting that, it's just like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to find anybody to do this. This is just so annoying. And then you end up finding out that that is exactly what lights that person up. And you're like, wow, okay. Well, this is interesting, right?
Indeed, they have to be excited and they have to say, wow, that's really neat. Wow, I like what you're doing. That's the person that you want to hire to be part of your team.
Yeah, because if you give them something that they're excited about, I think one of the ideas that kind of came a while ago to me through one of the mentors is that someone said, "Well, no one's going to work as hard for your business as you would work for your own business." And so, I think maybe the hack is, well, why don't you find somebody else whose business it is to do that thing that you're trying to get
For
someone else to
sure.
do, right?
And
Now
here's
they're
a
working
tip.
for their own business.
Here's a tip. Pay them what they want to get paid and pay them on time.
Mm.
Uh, don't ever mess with money. Don't look for discounts. Uh, they'll if I always figured I could talk someone down by 10%, but I didn't. Instead, I paid them what they wanted. They'd give me 20% extra in terms of value. That's what you want to be doing. So pay them on time for sure.
Yeah. So I so agree with that. And when you think about it, I think if you put yourself in the other scenario where someone's trying to talk you down on your price, how does that make you feel, right? It's it,
Yeah, have a policy about that. And it's always helpful if you can get something in return. So, tell you what, I can reduce 10%, but if you can give me a really good referral or a good testimonial, then I'm happy to do that. Or something, some sort of trade-off. But be clear about your prices. In the world I'm in, the time studies, I'm pretty firm. I also do some facilitation and training, and the rates there are variable. And sometimes it is a little tricky to figure out this is what I need to be charging. But I know this for sure. Whatever you're charging today, if you charge 10% more tomorrow, the market will be fine with that. So don't under value yourself for sure.
I agree with that. So let's talk about getting fans. Now, you've been doing this for a long time. Now I'm wondering, actually, first, how have things changed from then to now? Or have they?
It's certainly the internet since I started, and phones. It's interesting. I looked up your business, and yeah, everyone's got a way to contact people. We went skiing recently to Vermont to Sugarbush, and we stayed at a bed and breakfast. And the fellow there, he was doing a presentation to other bed and breakfast owners, and he had these 10 tips. I think I only got two of them, but anyway, the number one he said is answer the phone. So I always say, make it easy for people to contact you. And I've got my address up there. Now, there's some women who run their businesses who feel a little cautious about giving out too much information. So, I understand that. But for the most part, make it easy for people to reach you and contact you. In my case, it's email or through the website or the phone. I pick up the phone and I still do get calls. That has changed. People are phoning a lot less than they used to. In
So,
terms of getting fans, well, I run a couple of niche businesses, the time studies, I said the facilitation work as well. People aren't standing around at cocktail parties talking about, do you know someone who could do a time study? So I've done lots of things. I sent out newsletters physically. I sent them out licked envelopes and sent out newsletters to people. I went to networking events and trade shows and did advertising and did PR and so on. The thing that worked best for me is I want people to find me. So I use Google AdWords. So we all have websites, and you should have a website. Don't go cheap. So I have well, five actually, but there's four main ones for the different parts of the business, and they exist for different reasons. But I use Google AdWords. So if somebody types time study or facilitator, there's a good chance they're going to find me. Now, your website will get natural traffic, and some people sell SEO services, that's search engine optimization. And I figure, why pay that person $1,500 a month where I can pay Google itself to put me on the front page of Google? So I use Google AdWords. That's how Google made their money over all the years. So I pay per click. So when you click through to my website, that's going to cost me a dollar or $1.50 or something. And that's worth it. That's had a 5-to-1 payback for me. So every dollar I invested in Google AdWords had at least a 5 times that in terms of returns just for doing the first contract, let alone repeat business and referrals and so on. So that's how I get my fans. Social media is newer in the last 10 years or so. So I'm on LinkedIn and I spend some time on that. But you can't be on all these different social media things. That's a great hog of time. So focus on what works for you. Figure out your business machine for marketing and keep doing more and more of that.
wow, I love that. That's a really good answer. And I agree. So for the ads, I do agree with what you're saying, especially with purchasing the ads directly from the company. You can do that on Facebook, and you can do that or like on the social media platforms, and you can also do that on Google. And I think you're right because a lot of people will sort of focus on this SEO type stuff, either for themselves, they're trying to learn it, trying to grow, but you're fighting with everybody else who's also trying to do the same thing, and it's just going to
Yep.
keep on shuffling. You're going to get bumped down, and you're going to get frustrated and try to get back up again. When I mean, like you say, why not just throw some money into the ads and do it that way,
Yes.
right?
So there's advertising, there's pay per click. So ads is, it's a visual picture or something, eat at Joe's or whatever it is, buy my thing. Whereas pay per click is people are doing search. And just ask yourself this. When was the last time you searched for something? A pair of shoes, what's showing on at the movie theater, whatever. We all continue to use search, and that
Yeah,
won't change.
yeah,
Maybe AI will affect that a little bit, but I want to be in that game where someone says, I got to find someone. Where do I find someone? And they're going to search and find me. I'm sort of reinforcing that with my website and with social media. They might go, well, yeah, I heard about you somewhere, or podcasts like this. So there's a little bit of reinforcement, but Google AdWords for me is the main driver of my business, and that works. They don't all work. I mean, there's some money I spend on those that don't come back, but generally speaking, it does.
yeah. And I think just one more thing to mention on that is that I have spoken to a lot of people that sort of use the whole I don't pay for ads as some sort of badge. And I remember I used to say it as well. I don't have to pay for ads because, whatever people find me for whatever reason. However, I do think that maybe 10 years before the whole social media thing, ads were expensive. You had to buy a billboard. I mean, it was expensive. I
Right.
get that, right? However, um, and then for the first part of social media, I don't know if they were necessarily as effective. Now, especially with the data that these companies are collecting on us, and the ability to show the ads to the right person, like you're using all of the money that they've spent in targeting those ads to the people that should be seeing your ad for and how much do you spend on ads? I mean, it's probably in the hundreds, wouldn't it be? Or is
Yeah, I spend about 1,000 to 1,500 a month. There's a bit of a theme here, which is invest money in your business. If
yeah,
you have an internet connection or if you have a smartphone, yeah, indeed, you can start a business and be creative. Oh, I use this program and I use that app and so on. But you know what? Spend a few dollars on the delegating to others, as we talked about, or advertising or setting up a website. Yeah, doing everything for free kind of works, but it's not as professional. It's not as guaranteed as investing the money you need to in your business. Uh, Hire someone like you guys to
yeah.
do the creative work for you, but spend a few dollars rather than trying to do everything for free.
Yeah, I think the only thing that you can do for free is the referral thing. So if you do a really good job at servicing the customers that you have, then you can get referrals and you don't have to pay for them. But
Indeed.
other than
Yeah.
that, you need to put some money into it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So now let's talk a little bit about the cash flow. So now we're talking about spending money on delegating or spending money on ads. Like, how do you make sure that you've got the right kind of formula going where you're putting enough money out that you can get some business back, but you're making enough money to cover that money that you're putting out?
I created a little spreadsheet for myself, a cash flow spreadsheet when I started. I've used it ever since. I probably look at it at least every 2 or 3 days or so. And basically, on the create your own, here's the money that's coming in over the next few months. Here's the money that's going out. Now, you probably have a better idea about what's going out.
Mhm.
It's paying for your various services, your phone or internet or whatever. Maybe you've taken out a loan, so there's interest payments. Rent, if you have that. Internet stuff, and so on. So your expenses are you can show those over the next year, and I have
Yeah.
mine that go out over a year. In terms of money coming in, it's kind of hard to predict. Maybe you've got some contracts coming up. Maybe you've got repeat income, which is good. I don't, but some people are trying to get regular, like a retainer or repeat income every month. So you can put that on terms of what's coming in. Um, I tend to go out 2 months. So if I don't know that I've got a contract or something in the next 2 months, the rest, farther out is just kind of estimates. Within the next 2 months, that's pretty well got to be guaranteed. So anyway, you take your income and subtract off your expenses and see what's left. Do this thing over the next year or so. A cash flow spreadsheet like that, you can make your own, is absolutely essential. And then that ties in a little bit. I put my sales on that as well, and I use some of that for my accounting every year. Get your accounting set up properly. I don't do it myself. I pay someone else. I do my own. Well, in Canada, there's HST we can do ourselves. That's a kind of a retail sales tax. So I do that myself. Um, but the cash flow spreadsheet is really a really powerful tool. Simple to do. Make it up yourself. Again, income on the top, about a year out, and expenses on the bottom. See what the difference is. And the end of every 1 month is the beginning of the next month. So every month I knock off the previous month, and it sort of turns over to the next one. It's a simple thing to do, but a powerful tool. You can actually have positive cash flow, but be losing income or losing business. So, maybe money's coming in, but in terms of your expenses going out, they're going to be quite high. So you got to watch that as well. What do your expenses look like, and how do you want to forecast that over the next while, and keep
Yeah.
those expenses to a minimum as much as you can.
Yeah, and also taxes as well. That's a big one. When you're self-employed, all of a sudden you're responsible for that, right? It doesn't come directly off your pay.
Yeah, I'm a corporation, and there's some advantages to corporation. It costs a little more to do your taxes every year, but there's benefits because you can keep money in the company, or you can pay yourself a salary and shunt money back and forth. And also, if you're doing business with large corporations, they're probably going to want you to be a corporation. And you might need to have insurance for some of them. That's been the case for me. Being incorporated has some advantages for gaining large purchase orders from major corporations. If you're a one-on-one consultant and someone's just paying you, a few dollars here and there, yeah, I suppose you can do that, but uh, being a corporation certainly helps.
Yeah, I incorporated at the beginning of this year myself too, and it was literally on those kind of same principles. Speaking to my money guy, he's like,
Yep.
uh, it's not necessarily for everybody, but there are some advantages to doing that. Um, but yeah, I love I like your idea of the spreadsheet. Now, okay, so if we are just getting started though, isn't there situations where you might need to put a little bit more money out that's coming back in, at least to
Oh,
get started?
I certainly did because the sales weren't there early on, and I had to go and find extra money and was paying a lot of interest. I mean, one loan was, hold on here, 15% interest. Now interest rates were quite high at the time. I paid that off fairly quickly. I went to family and so on. So, start off your business with some money in the bank. I mentioned the inventors that I helped. And sometimes we get someone who is 40 years old and was trying to invent this thing. I'd say, just tell me a little bit about, your financial situation. You own a house? No. Oh, you rent? Well, that's okay. And, what kind of savings have you got? And it usually is like $200 or something. I
Uh,
just thought to myself, if you're 40 years old and haven't put some reasonable amount of money aside for retirement or savings or buying a house or whatever it might be, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to manage your finances effectively as an entrepreneur. I'm a little cautious there, but somebody who's well into their fourth decade, it doesn't have anything to show for it. It's not likely that they're going to be a good financial manager. That was my conclusion. If you're thinking about starting a business, do be putting some money aside now. You've got to be doing that to buy a house or get married or go on a big trip or for retirement. You got to be doing that anyway. So put some of that money aside so that when you do start your own business, if you haven't started yet, you've got a little bit of savings and you can invest that in the business. Then maybe you go to friends or family and convince them to invest, and there's different ways to do that. There's some government loans out there, or if you've got a scientific product like mine, there's some research and development fees. If you're a corporation, you can get a tax credit. There's people who will help you with those. So that's another advantage of being incorporated. But, we've only got a couple of minutes here. Find someone who can give you professional advice on money management. Even just pay some accountant, just say, let me pay you $300 and give me an hour of your time, even if you're not going to hire them long term. They'll give you lots of advice like I am, but you need to be a good money manager for sure. And that will make a difference down the road.
I have nothing to add to that. That was that's what I would say. So, yeah, like you say, we are running out of time. So it is time for your guest solo. Tell me what's exciting in your business right now.
I continue to do these time studies, and I'm doing some research on senior executive women. Some said senior, like old. No, they're senior in the company. So
Okay.
executive women who are managing a lot of people. I'm looking at them to track their time with the TimeCorder device. Doesn't cost them anything. I'm looking to recruit some of those women. In fact, I'm looking for someone to help me recruit them as well. And so just see if I can get a lot of women involved because maybe then they'll hire me at some point. But if they don't hire me, that's okay. The other thing I'm kind of excited about, I've done 4 First Nations projects over the last couple of years. So I'm looking at marketing my services to First Nations as well for team building and strategic planning and facilitation work. Those are the 2 things that I'm excited about.
That does sound exciting. And so tell me, like, what would these women need to know in order to know that they want to work with you?
They're managing staff. They work for a large corporation. They're struggling with their own effectiveness. So we're looking at proactive versus reactive time. I've got a list of activities for them to track, send them the device, track their time for a couple of weeks, and then I give them some feedback, give them some tips and ideas. There's no charge for this. And then they're part of a pool. And so I'm looking at what else, other things can I do with that the pool of women who have been involved, putting on workshops for them and podcasts and so forth. So it's a research project. I go and present at time use conferences. So I'm a research guy, and if nothing comes of it, that's fine. But I'm looking for more people to be involved. And again, maybe they'll hire me someday. We'll see if that happens.
Cool. So, you've worked with a lot of different organizations. I'm wondering, is there something that we would be surprised by about how people spend their time?
Yes, since I started, people spend about 25% of their time on administrative tasks. And way back then, there was no internet or smartphones or anything. And with technology, we keep inventing more and more ways to be out of touch with each other. So I'm convinced that 10 years from now, I don't make too many predictions, but if people are still working in knowledge worker jobs, and some of those may disappear, but if people are working in knowledge worker jobs, they will continue to be burdened by administrative tasks. So the successful people are spending more of their time on what matters most and spending not just 20% of their time on their top priority activities, but getting up into the 30 or 35%. So everybody says AI is going to make a big difference. Well, all those other technologies made a difference. Very quickly, I've measured unnecessary email. It's 3.4 hours per week. And so email's good, but it's a time burden as well. And so those who talk about AI changing our lives, yeah, it will, but there'll be some burdens and some time wasters that come along with that. So don't rely entirely on technology. Focus your time on what matters most. That's my message to the
Wow.
world.
So really what you're saying is that with all the technology that's happened, we're still spending around the same amount of time on that administrative stuff that we
That's
think
right. Now
we're
we're
spending
able to
less
do
time on.
more stuff. I mean, guys like me, I'm able to do much more, but there still is that administrative burden. So you've got to watch out for that, delegate it, hire someone to do it, automate it or whatever. But it will still be part of every knowledge worker job.
Wow. Wow, that's really interesting. And I think yeah, I can attest to it too, because I don't necessarily spend any less time on the admin, but you're right, I can do more with the admin now that I'm using some AI tools.
Yep.
Really interesting. Awesome. Well, so how can people get in touch with you then?
I've got a couple of different websites, but the main one is getmoredone.com, and just go to the contact page and contact me through that. If you're interested in some time management tips, I'll send them to you at no charge, an article called Putting a Priority on Your Time. If you're interested in the women's study, contact me through that. So it's getmoredone.com.
Awesome. Awesome. So before we go, who's your favorite rock star?
Peter Gabriel, without a doubt. He's had a long, long career. He's done some very innovative stuff, and he's also contributed to world music. So he's my guy.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I remember learning quite a bit about him when I was learning music, and he's very complicated. He's not one of those simple musicians, I don't think, right?
He loves the textures of music. He's also a great poet, and writes terrific melodies and teams up with excellent people. Something that we should all do. So a
Yeah.
lot to be said for him.
Yeah, I think Sledgehammer is one of my favorite songs. I love that song. It's so good.
Uh, my favorite, In Your Eyes, is the
Uh,
song that my wife and I danced to at our wedding. It's got so many terrific textures in it. If you don't know that song, go and listen to it. Actually, on YouTube, watch the concert version of it. It's absolutely stunning.
oh, love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Mark. This has been a lot of fun.
Great to be here, Tim.
Awesome. To the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. But we'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. And as always, go to work at home rockstar.com for more information.